Hey guys, my name is Hab and this is the WZ-111-1G FT. Quite a name again, I know. A tier 8 tank destroyer. You might have watched the video on the 121G FT, and here's what you can get for free in the tech tree. And personally, if the CC64 is the best tier 8 TD, this is a great runner-up as well, but why? Well, that's kind of easy to explain, so let's talk about the gun. The gun is a hefty 130mm. I know some people that use the 122, but personally I would recommend the 130 for that juicier alpha damage. The 122 does have a pretty big advantage in the aim time, aiming almost a third of the time faster, but the 130 has better dispersion, penetration, and overall DPM as well. Compared to the CC64, both guns lose out on the DPM but are better in accuracy and significantly better in penetration. Overall, the gun is awesome and should still be able to use reticle calibration, which helps massively for some crucial shots if you feel you need the additional help, which I do often utilize. 6 degrees of gun depression is somewhat limiting, and the 12 degrees of gun angles to each side is actually not bad. The armor is a bit more complicated, and it's where the CC64 clearly and decisively wins that competition. At a quick glance, the armor is actually quite good, but this is very situational as the entire front is basically a spearhead. Excluding the large lower plate that has barely 180mm of effective armor, the upper plate has about 270 to 280 of effective armor. The upper superstructure is about 230, which does make it an easier shot. Due to the layout, however, you cannot angle. Angling only shows the upper structure at a normalized angle where you're looking at barely 200mm of armor. Using your gun depression instead is what I would recommend, where you can put another 20mm of armor on that superstructure. This still brings up another problem with the armor, however, and that is that the armor is still a zero-sum game. Something that can go through that superstructure will almost always succeed in doing this. As such, I'd recommend either playing the tank in an assault role, or over medium to long ranges to help the armor a little bit. Assault, cause chances are the enemy player will be a bit too shocked to actually aim at you, and medium to long range is kind of obvious. The mobility is actually not bad. Decisively better than the CC64, but not faster. It goes 35 tops and 18 reverse, which is actually quite nice. With a top loadout, you're gonna be looking at around 36 to 38 degrees a second on the tracks, which is not bad at all, but you might still want to take some care so that you don't get circled or put into an awkward spot. The mobility is otherwise fine. Before we go into the classics, let's actually recap the points. So, the pros: great gun, decent damage output, decent mobility, and trollish armor. And the cons: unreliable armor and average gun depression. It's definitely not better than the CC64, but it's not far behind if you want a TD from the tech tree with a well-behaved gun. This is probably the last time you'll see it in the Chinese tech tree, as the tier 9 has a 152 and so does the tier 10, neither of which are actually insanely accurate or anything. However, as a tier 8, the 111-1G is a quite solid pick. Maybe it's not something you should keep in your garage, but it's something you should consider. Overall verdict: consider keeping it. Right, so it's been a while. I've also managed to catch a cold, so excuse the voice. However, I have finally gotten a good replay of this thing, so it's not particularly long or anything, but I do think it does say a little bit of how well this thing can perform, given enough, well, handling and care. It's not what it used to be, but I think it's still quite nice. I have also as well acquired the SU-130 PM recently, so maybe that will pop up on the channel someday. Anyways, the Fearless spotted us, which is already a problem since I wanted to go to this bush, which means that the enemy SU might shoot me, which he did, and he kinda messed up. So did the Progetto, but unfortunately I did take a hit in the process. This thing is not exactly made for trading that well. The alpha that it has is really, really nice and welcome, however, barely 1150, 1200 HP is not exactly great. That Progetto made another grave error, so I immediately smacked him for that, but that means I'll miss the Charlemagne. However, maybe I'll have an opportunity to shoot something else, so... Well, the answer was not really, so I just fired into the bush, hoping that it would connect. I actually can't recall if it did, but I did get spotted for it, so it's possible he was still in the bush at the time. Now, you can see that the Progetto there is trying to hover around to get rid of Progetto. Yes, that is a Progetto, but thankfully I have the reticle cal on, so pop and pop. What a gorgeous shot. That guy did not expect it. Anyway, the CDA-105 is in big trouble, so might as well help him a little bit and get rid of the Fearless that way. We have lost 2 tanks already. Unfortunately, the CDA is gonna die pretty soon because he was a little overzealous in peeking. Unfortunate. I also miss out on the T-54, but hey look. How much HE alpha do we have again? It's enough. That was a pretty decent roll though, so, you know, you usually don't get that lucky. It depends. But we have lost the regressor, which is a pretty big problem, as now we have a relatively decently well-armored heavy and a tier 8 and the T-54 you want to deal with. Thankfully, I don't have to worry about the T-54 for a while longer, because he's gonna do something incredibly dumb. I was expecting him to peek out from the hill here, but nada. Just nada. Zilch. Nothing. However, he did something even dumber, and that is go directly into my arc of fire. So, yeah. Not smart. The K91 is there, and I really wanted to turn until I noticed the fact that the Charlemagne is here, and unfortunately he did land a hit on me, which made me feel considerably more careful. I've been hoping that they get rid of the K91 quickly, but the reticle cal just came back off cooldown, and there we go. Now, one thing to note is the Charlemagne actually does not have a lot of like penetration on its main gun, so that gun depression trick worked there, but it only will work like once. The other shot he will actually go through with. And he was about to go in for me in this last shot, but unfortunately for him, I already had my allies here, so in the end, a pretty decent battle. Almost a Radley, but the Skoda took the kill in the end, which not that big of a deal. But yeah, this thing does work if you rely on those angles to get you some outlandishly bad shots for the enemy to hit, which does not happen often. You gotta have the corners for it. You gotta have corners for everything to be able to pull that off, so that is a little bit unfortunate. Another thing to note is that the gun depression is not that awesome, but it is enough, and the gun is well, basically the main focal point of this thing, especially if you use the reticle cal, but that's basically it. It's a poor man's SU-130 PM, excluding the fact you have less mobility and you don't have a turret, so... Yeah, that's basically it from me. Do I recommend it? Still kind of, yeah. It's been a couple of months since I wrote the script, but I would still probably recommend it given the circumstances. Anyway, that's gonna be it for me. You know the usual stuff. If you liked the video for some odd reason, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, whatever, and I'll catch you guys next time. The next one should be on the Brask. See ya.